Good morning, Owasso. This is the Twins with Owasso Live, and this is the Morning Loop. We have a subtle case of not even subtle at all, of course, showing that little meme that was created there. But yeah, Mark Zuckerberg is copying Elon Musk's homework because Facebook is one of the most censorious platforms. I guess it's not as censorious as TikTok or Instagram, which are, I'll share something with my friend, and then an hour later I'll be like, "Did you see that video I sent you?" And he goes, "It said there was nothing there." So, kind of going off what we were talking about the other day, it's like we were talking about we were having an argument about the media landscape and how censorship works and the bias of the media. And then, I was having a conversation with somebody that was just totally like, "No, the media is right. The media is right." And it's like, it is now, but now I won't even say it's right now. I would say it's moving to a more moderate or coming back to the middle. But again, this is why you can't argue with people on the left, because when the pendulum shifts back just a little bit, or it moves more towards the middle, it feels like oppression. Again, it's like when you tell someone that when you give somebody special treatment, through DEI or something like that, and you take it away, it feels like oppression. So the pendulum's swinging back now, and it's not even on the right. It's just slowly coming back towards the middle, and they're like, the far right people are taking over. It's like, no. Like, common sense and rationality is coming back, and you guys have lived in a left-wing dominated media for so long that any shift the other direction feels like a far-right swing. So I guess that's probably the miscommunication I was having with that dude the other day. You know what I mean? So, but again, it's the world that we grow up in. Like, we've grown up in a world where the media is so far left that if you grow up thinking that everything they say is true, you grow up in this mentality that, why would the weatherman lie to me? Why would the media lie to me?
Michael Malice's, why would the man on the TV that tells me the weather lie to me?
Exactly. So when you grow up in that world and you don't grow up with, the kind of skepticism that we on the right have always had of the media, because we can tell that they have a bias because of how they treat us. So anyway, Zuckerberg's coming out and saying that Facebook is making a big switch. They're going to stop suppressing free speech, and it turns out all their fact-checking organizations are biased. So we're going to pull up a Tim Pool video, and we're going to kind of just analyze this Tim Pool video because he put it together very well. So,
do you want me to start with that, or would you rather start with his little, speech?
The speech is in the Tim Pool video if you fast forward it to his little his coffee brew thing. So if you want to pull that up whenever you're ready.
All right, well, let me pull that bad boy up real quick.
Yeah, not a problem. So again, it's really good stuff now. I mean, like we're going to a sense of normalcy. We're moving to the middle where people can have a dialogue without one side being suppressed or censored and the other side just dominating the landscape, or being like, "See, the fact checkers are all on our side." Well, how convenient for you when it turns out all the fact checkers were biased little turds who were only...
Yes, which brings up the question that we always ask. Who fact checks the fact checkers?
Yeah.
If the fact checkers come into something biased or wrong, and they're the people that are the fact checkers, we've talked about this so many times with the COVID stuff. How many times did they change their mind on the COVID stuff? Well, then you get the excuse from the left of, "Oh, well, they got new information. The science changed." How convenient for you.
Mm-hmm. So go ahead and pass his little thing. You just find the part where you can see Zuckerberg talking.
All right, you got it.
There you go.
Right there. And start.
Too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes, similar to X, starting in the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media
just in the US
non-stop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy.
Well, just pausing right there just for a second. It's because the UK doesn't have free speech. No other country besides the US has free speech. That's why we always talk about that too. That stupid newsroom with Jeff Daniels or whatever is has that dumbest speech ever. It's like, everybody has free speech. Like, no, they don't. We are the only country that has free speech.
Yes. It's the lie of Hollywood. We feign neutrality, but, because again, it's like with that debate I was having with that guy. He's assuming, like, it's coming from the point where it's like, hey, the media's not always been left-wing, it's always been a balance, and now it's shifting right. It's like, but it's been far left since Obama.
Yep. 100%.
It was far left before Obama,
Yeah.
too. I mean, even as far back as Walter Cronkite, they've been left-wing.
Yeah, I mean, and we can prove this with the whole Obama like bombing that American citizen. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Because Trump had one raid that got a bystander killed, and the media hasn't let that go. But Obama literally orders a drone strike on an American citizen
In a
They were
coffee
good.
shop in Yemen. Like,
Mhm.
there were other people there, too.
Yeah.
Other people got hurt besides the guy that was an American citizen that we were actually attacking.
Yes, 100%. But anyway, we'll get back to this video.
We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US.
They will allow more speech by lifting restrictions on some topics that are a part of mainstream discourse and focusing on enforcement of illegal and high-severity violations. They're also going to take a more personalized approach to political content so that people who want to see more of it in their feeds can. A big component of the controversy was that Mark Zuckerberg said we are going to downrank civic content. That's right. If you like sharing political memes or information pertaining to the goings-on of the world, they actually restricted your ability to share this information. Kind of makes no sense. Meta's decision affects contracts it has with 10 fact-checking partners.
Sorry about that, folks. That's what I was talking about. Like, it's like whenever I would share something, it would get no traction. Unless it was like a photo of me and my girlfriend or a photo of my dog or a photo of me doing army stuff, zero traction on the post. My memes were always censored on Facebook. Always. Yep. Anytime I posted anything political. And I said, again, the one time I got traction on it was, again, two guys who I consider more left-leaning jumping in to attack me for my meme.
Yes, but here's the thing, too, is like he's like in my, like, you can like top tier, like your friend group and stuff on Facebook.
You should see all my posts.
Yeah, I never see his post unless it's something of your girlfriend. Like, I have to go to his page to find this stuff. This is what we mean by shadow banning. Your posts aren't notifying your friends, hey, Corey posted this. Okay, why ain't I seeing it?
Yeah. Again, it's like when I posted that meme, those two guys commented on it, and then a huge fight broke out inside our meme. It's like their worldview is so they're so bubbled in by their Facebook groups or what they follow on Facebook that whenever they see something conflicting or something go, that doesn't make sense to me. It's because whatever circles you're in will not allow for you to see me. And they've shadow banned me. So like whenever you see something that I post, it's like, well, that's just patently absurd.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead. You can keep going.
Absolutely.
Partners in the U.S. Its website shows it has similar business arrangements with fact-check organizations in about 119 countries, extensively in Europe, Brazil, and India. Jeez. But only the U.S. program was changed by Tuesday's announcement. Now, the fact-checkers are pointing the finger back at...
Kind of scary that it's the same, like, 5 or 6 new fact-checking outlets that run every single fact-checking outlet around the world. This is where I'm coming in the fact that I think that this is Operation Mockingbird, folks. That CIA folks that are doing this. How did they get this worldwide organization like this that quick?
Yeah, again, this is nuts, man. Like, again, and he's only talking about fixing it on the American side. He's not talking about fixing it globally.
Mm-hmm.
I remember he was the guy sitting there talking to Angela Merkel going, how can we stop any criticisms of our government policies? And he goes, and literally Mark Zuckerberg was caught on a hot mic going, we can work with you to stop saying we will censor people in Germany so they can't criticize your government, Angela Merkel.
100%.
That should terrify you. I mean, again, if America didn't have the freedom of speech, I mean, they already did it. Like the whole fact check thing was just them going, if you're on the right, you're stupid, and we're going to put a big false claim on anything a person on the right posts. So Tim Pool, and we're watching Tim Pool right now. So Tim Pool will explain this more and probably better than I ever could.
I'll put a link to all this stuff once the video's uploaded.
Yeah, go ahead and keep going.
Meta. PolitiFact is claiming that bias isn't the problem because they were following Meta's rules. And in one of the most hilarious headlines, the New York Times wrote that Meta says the fact checkers were biased, but fact checkers say, no, we weren't. I love it because it's like we've investigated ourselves and found we did nothing wrong. In this post from Aaron Shirachman, who is leading the Poynter Institute, which basically decided who was going to be in this program, he says, PolitiFact will have more to say on this, but these are my thoughts. The decision has nothing to do with free speech or censorship. PolitiFact is an original partner and has been working on this project for 8+ years. The statement reads, The decision to remove independent journalists from Facebook's content moderation program in the U.S. has nothing to do with free speech or censorship. Mark Zuckerberg's decision could not be less subtle. PolitiFact is one of the 5 original partners who worked with Facebook to launch a fact-checking program in the U.S. in December 2016. And our journalists have worked on the project for more than 8 years, publishing thousands of fact checks in that time. Let me be clear. The decision to remove or penalize a post or account is made by Meta and Facebook, not fact checkers. They created the rules. The role of PolitiFact and other U.S.-based journalists has always been to provide additional speech and context to posts that journalists found to contain misinformation. The role of Facebook and Meta has always been to decide what to do with that information. Facebook and Meta solely created the penalties that publishers faced and the warning labels and overlays that users saw. It was Facebook and Meta that created a system that allowed ordinary citizens to see their posts demoted, but exempted politicians and political leaders who said the very same things. In case it needs to be said.
Okay, right there. That's the other part of this like shadow banning thing too. Why were politicians allowed to post this misinformation, but you and I, as the average citizen, were not?
Yes.
And same thing with the mainstream media companies. Their Facebook pages like CNN, MSNBC, whatever, could post misinformation, especially like we're getting into the COVID stuff or censor stuff. But if we posted something like, hey, masks don't work, or, you know, you'll still get COVID if you get the jab. You know, that was misinformation, and people were literally deplatformed for stuff like that.
Yeah, and again, they have other ways of censoring stuff. Remember, it's not just these PolitiFact organizations. The content moderators on Facebook all had a left-wing bias, too. The people that they hired through their hiring practice had a left-wing bias. I mean, we had stuff happen to us throughout the entirety of our Facebook lives that you would think was insane.
Yeah.
For like, I mean, we'd lose our accounts or lose the ability to post because of a meme we posted. It wasn't even a particularly offensive meme. Or, like I said, we'd be having conversations with people about maybe abortion or some type of topic, and you would lose the ability to use vowels.
Yeah.
Like, if I told you that, like, you were typing and, like, Facebook wouldn't allow you to type vowels anymore, you'd be like, you're nuts. You're crazy. But that actually happened. I watched it. I saw it happen. And what we would do in order to get past
Bypass
this particular,
it.
we would type what we were wanting to say to somebody in Word and copy-paste it into Facebook.
So
because
that's how we got around it, because I couldn't type vowels into my responses. So I would type out my response in Word and then copy-paste it into Facebook.
I know. I wish we had filmed ourselves doing this, but I mean, like, you'd be like, somebody would just be like, well, it's not your vowels. You just used it was your computer keyboard. That's the problem.
That's
it
what I
wasn't
thought it
because he would
was.
log out and use mine or use his phone, and he still didn't have the ability to do it.
I really do wish I had filmed that.
Insane, right? Yeah. So, I mean, it's just kind of one of those things where it's like you will not believe it unless you actually experienced it. Yep. So keep going, and we'll just keep. Again, Facebook, it was nuts. The stuff that they did to censor people on the right. And again, you tell somebody like the people we were arguing with the other day, like this kind of stuff that happened to us, and they'd be like, that just sounds far-fetched. That's insane. No, it's like that guy, like with the comment I said, you should look up Operation Mockingbird. That sounds like some RFK brainworm nonsense. You know, it's like, if you can't entertain the idea that it might be a real thing, I mean, it's like,
well, first off, Operation Mockingbird was a real thing.
Is a real thing. And well, I mean, but it's like I said, American Ultra, like MK Ultra, like people are like, that's not real. It's like, no, it was. I mean, what's his name? Manson, the guy that killed Sharon Tate and all them people.
Yeah.
Like, he was part of the MK Ultra project, and people are like, it's just nonsense. It was real. But again, that's just why
conspiracy theory is just 2 months away or like a few weeks away from being real.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And a left-wing person does not believe that. They will buy into the mainstream narrative. Anything that we consider a conspiracy theory is, in fact, a conspiracy theory.
Yep.
Despite the fact that RFK should hold on to conspiracy theories more than anybody, because the CIA was involved in the assassination of JFK, as we know now.
what level, we're not sure, but they were involved.
We'll get back to the video.
Or lack of involvement could be viewed as,
PolitiFact and the U.S. fact-checking journalists played no role in the decision to remove Donald Trump from Facebook. Today, if they chose, Facebook and Meta could remove the penalties publishers face from posting false claims and create a system that allows independent journalists to provide additional information and speech to users looking to understand the entire picture. The great thing about free speech is that people are able to disagree about any piece of journalism we post. You can see all of our work online at PolitiFact. We don't use anonymous sources, and we provide a bibliography of sorts to all the information we consulted. When we make an error, there is a process to correct those mistakes. And there is also a process to make sure Facebook and Meta receive the correct information. That's how the information cycle is supposed to work. If Meta is upset it created a tool to censor, it should look in the mirror. Signed, Aaron Sharkakman, PolitiFact Executive Director. I think he meant to say Aaron Sharakman, but maybe he has a typo. Now, herein lies the problem. The journalists are saying, hey, we didn't downrank anybody or flag them or accuse them of anything. All we did was say that these posts contained misinformation. Facebook then decided what to do with it. The problem for many...
This was the tattletale. This is tattletale syndrome that we're having right here. So they tattletale, oh, this person posted false information, despite the fact they really don't know. It's stuff that they just assumed is misinformation.
An organization that was created with a left-wing bias is tattletaling. Like, literally, they're just telling teacher, this kid said something offensive or posted a meme I don't like. You guys need to do something about it. And then they just put like a title on it saying there's misinformation in this meme. You know, caption this. I mean, I can't tell you how many things I posted where it'd say, this is missing context, or this meme as misinformation. Click here to see why.
It's the exact same thing whenever we post a video that has the word Trump in it. All of a sudden, the thing will pop up of the
January
election.
6th election, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, January 6th or something about the election. Yeah. So, again, what does that do? If you have to, if I post a meme and it says, this particular image has misleading information, click here to see why. And before you can even open up what the image is of, you have to see why it has misinformation.
Yeah, or this post may be harmful or dangerous or whatever.
Yes. So it is ridiculous. And again, these left-wing people through PolitiFact. I mean, and PolitiFact is like, he'll keep going, but we'll pause it when they talk about PolitiFact's left-leaning bias since its inception. So.
Yep, 100%.
Many publications like the Daily Wire, the Babylon Bee, and even Timcast, when they would flag our content as false, they would put a big old label on the front saying that we lied, when we didn't. Often the stories that we published were either satire in the case of the Babylon Bee, or with the Daily Wire, Timcast, and many others, we were 100% correct. The reality is, these third-party fact-checking organizations were massively biased. Take a look at this.
Uh-oh, we got a commercial rolling in. Oh,
but yeah, no, so he's about to show you the what do you call it? He's about to show you all the biases of all these political fact-checking organizations here. So when he gets it pulled back up, you're about to see that only one of the affiliation organizations had a right-leaning bias. The rest of them had a left-leaning bias. It's actually amazing.
Yeah, and they would send us to YouTube would send us to a commercial right before that spot happened.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's like I watched the whole video on my phone without a single commercial, but here at the office, it's like, oh. Again, YouTube is still pretty hard left. Like, I mean, and again, let's not pretend Facebook is going right. Facebook is just taking away the safety nets that protected people on the left, and now they're going to be exposed to a bunch of information on the right that they're not going to like seeing. Again, that's why I had that recent, debate blow up on
third-party
that
fact-checking organizations
Vance
were
meme.
Massively biased. Take a look at this list of 10 third-party fact-checking organizations that had contracts with Meta. You've got AFP, Check Your Fact, FactCheck.org, Lead Stories, PolitiFact, Science Feedback, Reuters, Televisia Univision, The Dispatch, and USA Today. There was only one partner with Meta that could even be considered right-leaning. Check Your Fact had ties to the Daily Caller. So let's take a look at the fact check bias chart. One of the original partners, PolitiFact, had issues with left-leaning bias dating back to 2010. University of Minnesota School of Public Affairs had...
I know this for a fact because whenever I was in college, I would have what I thought were just rational conversations about what was going on in the Democratic Party through Barack Obama and a lot of the stuff that he was doing wrong or stuff that I didn't agree with. And then I would be having conversations with people who were, in my opinion, far left, but they thought that they were the right because they'd be like, "Nuh-uh, I just checked PolitiFact, and PolitiFact said that you're wrong, so I'm right." And then the conversation ends there because they literally stop and they go, "You're wrong. PolitiFact said this, so in your face." Yeah. And they would walk away, and it's like, since 2010, there is a generation of people my age who have been using PolitiFact as their god when it comes to stopping debates.
But that's the problem with college kids. Like I said, college kids are we are built to go find an authoritative source and use that as your evidence. That's what it is. But that's what PolitiFact did. It gave college students who are politically active to be like,
It
look,
gave-
look,
it
I
gave them
found
the
it. I'm
EB.
right. Mhm.
It gave them the cheat card. It goes, PolitiFact said that I'm right and you're wrong. They didn't have to do any research. All they had to do. So somebody like me, it's like whenever someone says PolitiFact says you're wrong and you're stupid, it's like, well, shit. What am I supposed to do? I have to go in and research something. I can watch the video here. Like, this is clearly not the reality that, like, again, we can see things with our eyes. We can see reality for what it is. And then PolitiFact and people on the left will be like, but they said that that's not the way it was, so you're wrong.
Yep.
You know, it's like they gave additional context. So in your face, conservative. Again, this is what all my conversations were like in college. It was like, basically, we didn't have a way to combat this in college, because whenever someone on the left said PolitiFact said you're wrong, I'm like, isn't it convenient that PolitiFact always has a left-wing bias? You know, granted, back then they were just like going, it is the authoritative source on fact checking. And again, who fact checks? I mean, I remember watching Douglas Murray shortly after we graduated college, being like, who fact checks these fact checkers?
Yep.
And I didn't even think to have that conversation, because they just go, they said it so authoritatively. It's like, oh, no, PolitiFact said you're wrong.
College indoctrination of. That's the college indoctrination of appeal to authority fallacy, because that's what you do in college. You're told to go find me 3 sources minimum for whatever you're using in your paper, and you're going to a person, usually a professor, because it's usually like their book or whatever that you're citing. So you go find 3 sources, and you're like, okay, this person says this what I said is true too, so therefore appeal to authority fallacy. Boom.
Yeah. So again, I cannot tell you how in college it was a painful experience dealing with these people who would literally, you'd be having a debate and then they'd pull it up on PolitiFact, they'd say you're wrong, and then the debate was over and they got to walk away, and they would just be like, you're stupid, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about. And this is what, again, anybody my age, like, unless they're watching this video, guess what? PolitiFact had a left-leaning bias. And then you have people like Jimmy Kimmel and also maybe the truth has a left-leaning bias. Maybe comedians have a left-leaning bias because, well, you have to be smart to be a comedian. You have to be smart to be on the left. Again, this is the culture that people my age, millennials, were raised in. This is why there are so many left-leaning millennials.
Yep.
It's sad. But yeah, keep going. We can continue with the video.
Actually done a survey of PolitiFact, and they evaluated all 500 statements that PolitiFact had rated from January of 2010 to January of 2011. They found that of the 98 statements that PolitiFact had rated false, 74 of them were by Republicans. Duke University found that among PolitiFact's most prolific fact checkers, there is a heterogeneity in their relative ratings of Democrats and Republicans that may suggest the presence of partisanship. But hey, let's not just assume third-party analysis is correct. Let's actually show you many times they got it wrong, and dangerously wrong. Here's some really big ones. How about the Hunter Biden laptop story? In 2020, Facebook and Twitter took action to halt the spread of an article by the New York Post based on leaked emails from a laptop belonging to Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden. Initially, Facebook reduced the visibility of the news stories, adding a note saying, quote, "If we have signals that a piece of content is false, we temporarily reduce its distribution pending review by a third-party fact checker."
There was a lot of attention on Twitter.
Cost Trump the
during
election in 2020.
because
Yes, it was. There were people who straight up said that if they had heard about the Hunter Biden laptop story, they would have voted for Trump.
Fact checkers effectively prevented Donald Trump's re-election in 2020.
Which this is why I said, this is why I'm 100% that I think fact-checking organizations are CIA-run organizations that were literally there, that were censoring that information. Like, no, do not post this. Do not post this.
I agree, but at the same time, it doesn't matter if it was CIA founded or not. It's basically these people make money off of pushing their own political biases in the way they fact check stuff. So it's like, imagine getting paid to basically get on the internet, look at all the people you don't like and go, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Imagine having that kind of power and authority. And PolitiFact has had it since 2010. That's terrifying, folks. Again, you wonder why people are so far left, why people are, again, my generation of millennials go, PolitiFact said this, you're stupid. You know, it's like, you wonder why political discourse has turned to the way it is, why that conversation on Facebook we had the other day was so uncivil.
Yeah.
It's like, it's because of that.
Well,
Like,
I told you, he just appealed to authority. He goes, I checked this online. It's not true. By your source. The problem is that there's another source out there that can confirm that it's not true as well. So anyway, the whole my truth argument.
of the Hunter Biden laptop story, the New York
we have that
Post.
too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. I mean, basically, the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. The distribution on Facebook was decreased, but people were still allowed to share it. So you could still share it. You could still consume it.
So when you say
I'm just going to pause this just real quick and just touch on this. You remember when this happened, when the Facebook snips, before the 2016 election, when Trump got elected, they said that Russia posted like 2 or 3 advertisements that were pro-Trump on Facebook. That's what caused this whole censorship deal back in 2016, because I actually have that article pulled up. That's one of the articles I have if we finish this in a decent amount of time.
Yeah, it was what
that
they
talks
spent
about
like
that.
$300,000 and only reached about 7,000 people.
Yep.
So there was
and that's what swayed the election that
to
made
Donald
Hillary
Trump.
lose.
Yeah, are you kidding me?
Yeah, but that's all I just wanted to touch on real quick, because that's what started this. Was Trump started this in not Trump, but the Democrats started this by going, the Democrats are the most censorious and anti-free speech group that there is. I mean, I even have an article that talks about Kamala Harris, saying that Elon Musk has lost his right to Twitter because of, letting Trump be on the platform. And like every single one of the fact-checking organizations said false. She was talking about Donald Trump losing his privileges on Twitter and all that stuff. And like they're giving the most genuine takes. They go, if it had been reversed and Trump said that about Kamala Harris, they would have said anti-free speech.
Again, if you will not afford your enemies the same charity you grant your friends, you are so biased that how could you possibly ever come to a real or a rational worldview?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
you
if
can't.
you cannot afford your enemies the same charity you give your friends, then you're not going to ever come to any, like, we're never going to find any middle ground. It's like I said, it's like when in the debate, I was trying to see yes, I can see what you're talking about. The pendulum is swinging back to the middle because Elon Musk's Twitter takeover. Yeah.
But if you're far left, anything that's right of, it's like the left pole, like anything that's to right of the left pole
is far right.
Is far right. Exactly. So anything that's not where you thought the center was originally is far right, because like, oh, it's right wing now. No, it's kind of going back to a balanced state, not going right wing. But we'll get back to this video.
Distribution is decreased.
It got shared.
How does that work?
It basically, the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less. So fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely.
By what percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful. I don't know if the answer would have been don't do anything or don't have any process. I think the process was pretty reasonable. We still let people share it, but obviously you don't want situations like that.
Facebook later undid the block, which it said had stemmed from concerns around Russian disinformation. The decision to suppress the story while waiting for it to be fact-checked caused major political damage to Zuckerberg. Next, how about the COVID lab leak theory? As coronavirus spread around the world, suggestions that the virus could have been man-made were suppressed by Facebook. An opinion column in the New York Post with the headline, "Don't Buy China's Story," the coronavirus may have leaked from a lab, was labeled as false information. The decision infuriated the U.S. newspaper, which insisted the piece just discussed the theory rather than making a definitive claim one way or the other. It was months later that further doubts emerged over the origins of coronavirus. We do not definitively know where the virus came from. A U.S. intelligence report in 2023 said its agencies had been unable to determine the precise origin of COVID-19. China has insisted claims the virus may have leaked from a lab in Wuhan are false, although some scientists have argued it's a possibility. In 2021, Facebook lifted its ban on claims the virus could have been man-made. Obviously, as it pertained to COVID, the whole thing was suppressed in favor of a mainstream narrative that often conflicted. Famously, Fauci said early on, you don't need to be wearing a mask, but then later said, you're going to probably want to wear a mask. And then, of course, mask mandates became a thing. The confusion was largely due to these companies and the narrative machine telling you what you could or could not say, to where famously, Bill Burr, the comedian, said, I just turn on the TV and they tell me to wear a mask, I do. If they tell me not to, I won't. Nobody really knew what was going on. Now, I don't think that's necessarily
what to do, authoritative
the fault
TV source?
of fact checkers. But we cannot live in a reality
Giving me harder, Daddy.
where you have massive tech platforms, leaving everybody just scrambling, completely unsure how to actually navigate this problem. Perhaps it's a good reason to say, maybe we should just let the people decide. And hey, obviously, the COVID stuff gets a little crazy. A lot of misinformation, a lot of confusion, a narrative machine trying to tell us what to think when no one really knew.
The only thing that I'll pause on that is like, but Democrats don't like it when people decide. There's a reason why they didn't have a primary. There's a reason why all these things happen where we're like, oh, you know, you want to vote for your president? No, let us decide. We're the authoritative elite that know what you plebs can do. That's why you cannot say. That's what I said. I don't see how anybody can be a Democrat after what's happened in the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. It's insane.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we'll decide for you, plebs. You're just the people. You're the plebs. You don't understand politics the way we understand it. So we'll delegate and decide who's going to be your leader. I mean, and we'll also decide when you get to eat, when you get to go to the bathroom, too. You guys will love that.
Mm-hmm. My God. Anyway, we'll get back to this.
But how about the obvious stuff? Like this one. Kamala has never been referred to as the border czar, they claimed. How about Biden wandering away from world leaders at the G7 meeting? And we can't forget the very fine people hoax. Statements from Trump in 2017 that took until June of 2024 for a fact checker to confirm Donald Trump never called neo-Nazis and white nationalists very fine people. It would seem that fact checking...
Yes, this is the problem. This is what I was talking about. I was like, they just now fact checked that false in 2024. That happened like over like 6 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
No, it was 10 years ago.
10 years ago now.
Yeah.
So look at this. How can you say that's not biased? How can you say it's not biased? I mean, all it took, this is what we talked about with those cheat fakes. Like I said, CNN calling them cheat fakes. Oh, they made it look like Biden was lost over there, and they call that a cheat fake. And they say that Republicans are doing that to make them look stupid. Like, but the koi fish thing wasn't a cheat fake when they did that. Look, he dumped the fish food inside the thing. How disrespectful, even though Shinzo Abe did it. And then two, what we're talking about here is they straight up ignore or they clip that. They go, if you watch the full clip, he doesn't say that. But they clip that, and then they only see that little part, and they go, "Oh, he clearly defended neo-Nazis."
Again, but that's the whole point. Trust the media. It's like, they've been doing this for years. This is what it's always been. Whenever a story breaks, and then it finds out it's the Richard Jewell story. It's like Richard Jewell, the guy that saved everyone from the explosion at the 1996 Olympics.
Yep,
was basically turned into a pariah overnight because they were like, well, he fits the profile of a sad, lonely old bomber who would have planted the bomb, stopped the bomb, and then became the hero of his own story. So he'd have some, what do you call it? A hero movement. He'd get to have his 15 minutes of fame. And then nothing ever came of it. Like, they never found any evidence that he did it. And then 3 years later, after, he was a hero for a day, they were going to write books about him, and then he became the primary suspect, and then all those book deals and all that stuff that would have, basically had him set for life disappeared. And then guess what? 4 or 5 years later, the FBI finally said he's no longer a suspect in the case. They didn't give an apology. They didn't say, sorry, Mr. Jewell, we didn't mean to ruin your life and career and make it impossible for you to get hired as a police officer or security guard ever again. Guess what? They just said he's no longer a suspect. That is what we're talking about here. The media doesn't ever post the retraction. Or, you know what? They do. But they post it several months or years later on page 17. It's not the front page story anymore. That is why the media is evil. That is why you can't trust the media. You can't trust the fact. You can't trust PolitiFact. You know, I mean, if anything, the only thing that's done is PolitiFact and all this. They've made it. People on the right have to do more research because we have to go further. We have to, and when I have conversations with people, it's like, if you don't have all the information that I have, I'm basically talking to a wall, because when I'm talking about this stuff, I'm watching Tim Pool every day. I know what's going on in the world. And then if someone goes, that's crazy, whatever it is you're talking about, it's like, well, then what are we having this conversation for? If we're not on the same page of what I know, then you're just going to assume that, yes, I am crazy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. 100%.
For political advantage was the name of the game. Just take a look at when most of the fact-checking occurred and the types of ratings given. Republicans were the party out of power, implying that PolitiFact should have found more lies by the party in control. But does that necessarily follow? These left-wing fact-checkers were paid big money to silence Americans. 2 fact-checkers, Lead Stories and FactCheck.org, disclosed their 2019 funding from Facebook. Lead Stories was paid $359,000 in 2019 by Facebook, and FactCheck.org was paid about $229,600. Lead Stories and FactCheck.org account for more than half of all of the Facebook content review by U.S. fact checkers in January of 2020. Facebook's total investment in 2019 would be about $2 million. Now, most of you have probably seen this. Most of you have probably experienced it. You're sitting here watching a YouTube video on a channel that routinely calls out lies from the corporate press, but we often do rely on the corporate press for this news. One of the biggest conundrums in the fact-checking space is that outlets like the New York Times, ABC News, and CBS are considered de facto true no matter what.
That is what you meant and what I meant by legacy or mainstream media. We're talking about the TV that your mom, dad, and grandparents watched back in the day. They turn on CNN, MSNBC, NBC, whatever, ABC, doesn't matter. That's what we mean by, and especially when you're comment with that guy, is old media is all left-wing. He goes, yeah, we're talking about those old television networks that your grandma and grandpa turned on while they were walking around the house cleaning or doing chores, whatever. That's that way they knew what was going on in the world.
But again, it's like, you know, he kept arguing that Fox News has 60% of the viewership. Yeah, but only recently. Only since the election victory of Donald Trump on his second time, because what happened? People lost faith and were like, maybe the left-wing news media did gaslight us into thinking that it was impossible for Donald Trump not to win.
Exactly.
Maybe, again, it's like the Nazi movement. It's like, are we the baddies?
Yeah, are we the baddies? But yeah, it comes back to, why would you continue to watch an organization that got the election so thoroughly wrong? You have to be like, oh, maybe I need to go to the people who kind of said this was coming for, a while now.
Yeah, maybe their point of view wasn't so crazy after all. But again, the last 10, 20 years since Obama, they have made the right. You have the Jon Stewart effect. They have made fun of the right. They have made all of their positions, even normal positions, seem like you are a nut job. It's like, oh, I don't think you should trans kids. What? Bigots.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we should hire based on race. I think we should hire based on merit. You obviously must be a racist.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All the fun words, all the Nazi, homophobe, Islamophobe, whatever phobe they're pulling up today. So we'll get back to this. It's almost over.
Right. How do these third-party fact checkers determine if you said something true or false? They simply cite a news source that they think is always correct. Doesn't really make sense, does it?
Boom, right there. That's what we were talking about. They are citing a news source that reported something
the way that they liked it reported.
Exactly. So if they got that wrong, or the news report turns out to be wrong, guess what? That whole fact check's wrong. And guess what? They don't retract. As we're about to see, they don't retract stories, as we're about to see.
They didn't retract the Donald Trump one for 10 years.
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. Yeah, we've already seen that. Like, they don't take back their stories. Like, their stories are still up. Has he talked about the one where the Ukraine scandal? They talked about, like, trying to interfere in the Trump election one yet? I don't think they have.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about. They have two stories that said that there was Ukrainian interference in the 2016 election, and then there's another one that says that's not true. But they have the two stories on PolitiFact still on their website.
Oh, my God.
That are saying two different things.
But that's the game. If the New York Times reports something, it is presumed true. If Breitbart.com reports something and it wasn't cited by the New York Times, they'll say missing context, false information. Although, to be fair, often, even if you do cite Politico, they'll still claim it was fake news. Here's one of my favorite examples of how prominent corporate news outlets are lying to you. In a story from 2017, Ukrainian effort to sabotage Trump backfires. The story was written January 11th, 2017, and it opened by saying, Ukrainian government officials tried to help Hillary Clinton and undermine Trump by publicly questioning his fitness for office. They also disseminated documents implicating a top Trump aide in corruption and suggested they were investigating the matter, only to back away after the election. And they helped Clinton's allies research damaging information on Trump and his advisors, a Politico investigation found. And guess what? That story is still publicly available today without fact check, without correction. So we can just assume Politico was telling the truth, right? Maybe not. In a subsequent article for Politico, they wrote how a Russian disinfo op got Trump impeached. The Kremlin may have been laying the groundwork for blaming Ukraine for 2016 as early as 2015. January 22nd, 2020, by Natasha Bertrand. They wrote, 3 weeks after the election day in 2016, the Kremlin officially floated a theory that would ultimately lead to only the third presidential impeachment in U.S. history. Ukraine seriously complicated the work of Trump's election by planting information aimed at damaging his campaign chairman, Paul Manafort. A spokeswoman for Russia's foreign ministry told reporters on November 30th, 2016, accusing the Ukrainian government of scheming to help elect Hillary Clinton. President-elect Donald Trump by this time was busy staffing up his incoming administration, and some of his top advisors, including his son-in-law Jared Kushner and incoming National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, were making overtures to Russia's ambassador in hopes of establishing a diplomatic back channel to Moscow. Russian officials offered no evidence on that day or any other day that it was really Kyiv, not Moscow, that meddled in the 2016 election. Nor have U.S. intelligence agencies backed off on their collective finding that the Kremlin orchestrated a major effort to help Trump win office. I don't care what your opinion is on Russian interference. My question for you, or I should say the facts as presented, how can Politico simultaneously have two stories live right now on their website, one saying that Politico found they did this, and another story saying actually it was Russian disinformation? Pick one. The reality is, fact checkers simply decide which one they want to be true at what time. So it's rather difficult, isn't it? The truth is, the corporate press has a narrative. Individuals who work for these platforms, work for these outlets, know that there are editorial mandates and there are certain things that they can or cannot report. Famously, Max Kaiser, who had a BBC show, posted he left because everything that he was going to talk about had to be vetted by the government. Well, of course, the BBC is state-sanctioned, right? So how do you figure out what is actually true? I think the reality is you can't. Some people are going to believe insane things no matter what. They're going to think the moon is made of cheese or that extra-dimensional beings are coming to Earth to influence our politicians. I don't know, maybe it's true. What can I say? Certainly don't think the moon is made of cheese, and I don't got any evidence about extra-dimensional beings, but people are going to believe what they think makes the most sense. Perhaps the best thing we can do is advocate for a robust, meritocratic, independent media so that those who actually do the work and can prove what they say rise to the top. I firmly believe that if you're a news outlet and you lie all the time, people are going to stop watching. They're going to stop reading. I do think some people will probably still watch fake news outlets and still read them, but most people will try to find something that makes more sense. Hence, CNN, MSNBC, their ratings are gone. Some of these big news platforms are laying off their staff in droves because they are untrustworthy. And at the same time, I can shout out Timcast. We've been growing quite well. As more and more people come to watch our shows, check out what...
Now the right wing, as you said to that kid, is starting to become more mainstream. But that's only during this last election.
Yeah, and again, but he was... the conversation, he was honing in on that point where it's like going, today, I don't care about yesterday, or I don't care about 10 years ago. It's like, but you have to. If you want to understand the present, you have to understand the past. So... Again, and this is why we can't have civil discourse in this country with our political opponents. Because they have been, kids my age and younger have been gaslit so hard by the media. They're like the Islamic children in Palestine. They grew up being taught to hate Jews. They grew up being taught to hate Christians. Like, they don't want to live in peace with them. We would have to deprogram these people for years, and it still might not ever work. It's the same with the media right now. It's the same with what PolitiFact has done to political discourse right now. We cannot have rational or civil conversations with our opponents. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's incredibly difficult to. Because it's like what I tell you before. Imagine if someone could walk up to me right now and say, hey, I can prove to you that God does not exist. It would physically hurt. Like, there would be chemical reactions in my brain that would physically cause me pain to learn that. I mean, it would shatter my worldview. It would shatter my morality for the world that I'm living in currently. It's just like that guy. I mean, this story, what I'm telling you right now, this actually happened. A guy or somebody, like it was a dude whose aunt or something posted the actual Trump meme, like the fine and... The fine people. Oh no, he was making fun of the journalist.
The crippled.
He was like making fun of a crippled journalist. His aunt or something sent him a video going, "That's not true. Here's the full video." He watched it, could not process what he saw because he had his mind made up. He goes, "I know Donald Trump's evil." And finally, months later, it took him months to finally admit what he saw in the video was real. I mean, guys, it's like what I say. We could watch the same thing and we could be seeing we could be watching the same movie, but two things be playing out in people's heads.
Yep. And that's where all this came from. I have this article right here from the Business Insider. November 10th, 2016, Mark Zuckerberg dismisses Russia influence. December 15th, 2016, Zuckerberg announces plan to fight fake news. January 6th, 2017, U.S. intelligence report concludes Russia interfered in the election. January 18th, 2017, Facebook blocks Russia state news networks. February 16th, Facebook manifesto. New manifesto. April 27th, Facebook says it's cracking down on misinformation campaigns. July, no evidence Russian actors bought Facebook ads.
Yep.
Go down here to September 6th, evidence of Russia backed ads emerges. September 21st, Zuckerberg confirms Facebook is fully cooperating with the government.
There you go. So again, folks, we could go down this list all day. Chad could just keep scrolling and show you again. It's not the media does not care about the truth. They care about a narrative, whatever narrative they can spin to make their side look good or the people they want to win look good. That's all that's happened since Obama. It's all about making Trump look bad, making all of their politicians on the left look good. PolitiFact has literally ruined political discourse. Jon Stewart and all of his ilk, all the people that came after him, have ruined civil political discourse in this country for everyone. And it's no wonder places like Fox News have the lion's share, 60% of the market now. It's no wonder that places like Newsmax are growing. And like I said, again, we're going to plug Newsmax in here because they're a different company. You know, they're trying to become the next Fox News or maybe even better than Fox News.
Yeah. And that's only come in within the last few years.
They're very new, Newsmax. They're very new.
Same with OAN or whatever it is.
Absolutely. OAN, yeah, all these places. So you wonder why the mainstream's dying and why Twitter is the place where people go for news now, why Facebook and why the Daily Wire has dominated. It's because of how the media has treated people on the right. It is because people on the right are the only, again, you don't know you're being oppressed. What's the better way of saying this? So again, if you are given special privileges, like I said, again, DEI or the fact checkers are always on your side, and all of a sudden they go, by the way, we're taking away the fact checkers. They're no longer going to help you people on the left out anymore.
Privilege feels like oppression to those who, it seems like oppression to those that it's been given to, is the kind of the saying you're looking for.
It's like privilege is invisible to those that have it.
Yes.
And again, on the left, you have had privilege. You have had the fact checkers, again, since 2010, PolitiFact has been on your side, covering your asses, literally, like me in college. Having a conversation with somebody, one of my peers, being like, hey, yeah, no, I think this is wrong and this is what's going on in the world, and, you know, whatever left-wing party is doing, it's wrong and bad, and probably Obama bombing this dude, and they go, fact check, false. PolitiFact says that didn't actually happen. It's missing context. You don't know what you're talking about. Conversation over, click, and then walk away. It's like, and you're sitting there with your dick in your hand, essentially going, I have eyes. They reported this. Like, I mean, like what? What am I supposed to do now? The fact checker said I'm wrong. I mean, you have to dig in, and
you're in a conversation with a sheep that only goes by what the big overlords at PolitiFact tell them.
Yeah.
You are a sheep if you just go to PolitiFact. But anyway, we'll go to these memes real quick, and then we'll get ready to wrap it up. But guy who says Facebook was not suppressing free speech announces Facebook will stop suppressing free speech.
Thank you, Zuck.
I love this one right here. Said, I'm the good guy now, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm one of you now, yeah.
Kash Patel giving his thoughts on this. I might end it out with this one, actually.
Okay, cool.
So I might save that. I'm going to pull that one up and save it.
This guy spent $400 million last election.
You be quiet right now. We'll get to you later. Meta says fact checkers were the problem. Fact checkers rule that false.
Yeah, Tim Pool said that. It's like, again, we have done our own independent fact check into our company, and we found we did nothing wrong.
Yep. Then our lizard man right there, lizard man himself, Snake. I don't trust this snake. If Kamala had won, he'd be censoring even more. And I 100% agree with that. He literally has proven that he will kowtow to whatever politicians are in power and that it will oppress him.
And here's the bigger problem, too. The Facebook moderators, the people that they've hired, are still there. They haven't fired the Facebook moderators that, basically prevented you from using vowels. They haven't stopped. Like, I mean, those people are still going to be on there going, shadow ban, shadow ban, shadow ban, shadow ban. You know, that's why, despite the fact that he's saying that we're going to stop what we've done, they're not, because the problem is that also the left-leaning people in the organization that they hired, clearly they had a bias in the way they hired. And even if they didn't, even if there's a small weaponized group of far left-wing people who are going to censor you or shadow ban you, and again, I guarantee you, if I had a conversation like, yo, yeah, we've been shadow banned, like, they would just be like, you're nuts, you're crazy, you just don't post anything worth looking at. That's why nobody wants to follow you. Again, it's like, then explain why the pictures of me and my girlfriend or my dog or my army pictures can get 100 likes, and whenever I post a political meme, no traction. Maybe you or Eric might like it or find it, you know? But that's it.
Yeah, and then here's like I said, even satire wasn't safe from this. The Babylon Bee. Facebook is using fast check to shut down conservative satire. That's not funny, according to Zuckerberg. It says with the moon water announcement, Trump proposes a new space navy. The Ninth Circuit Court overturns death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh, my God.
And
that's
then
awesome.
Biden sells Alaska back to Russia so we can start drilling for oil there again.
Hey, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, just like they got rid of satire. Satire was wrong. Like, I mean, these are all their little stories that got censored on Facebook because they were fake news, despite the fact that the Babylon Bee is satire.
It's like The Onion. It's a satire.
Except the only problem is like their satire comes freaking true like within the next few months.
Yes, they say something crazy, and then the left goes, wow, that actually has a lot of value and meaning to our causes. So, yeah, let's use it.
100%. Here we go. These are the favorite leftist words. Leftist, when you're white and you have a valid opinion on something. Racist, fascist, sexist, Nazi.
That's true.
Oh, man.
But again, that's what our political discourse devolved into since Obama. Again, you criticized Obama, you were racist. If you like Trump, you're a fascist or you're a Nazi. This is what political discourse became because of things like PolitiFact, because of Zuckerberg, because of Facebook. They devolved it into the lowest denominator, the lowest tier. Like, I mean, it's like we can't have a rational conversation. Again, if we cannot address Islam, radical Islam, and all the problems it has without them going, Islamophobia, Islamophobia, we will never be able to solve the problem of radical Islam in this country or in Europe or the UK. Again, if we can't have an honest conversation without PolitiFact going, fact check false, we're never going to have a rational view of the world.
100%.
But again, I grew up with people around my age who are, again, all the people that probably disagree with me or the way I view the world, they're like, they grew up with PolitiFact being in their back corner. It's like, hey, there's their steroid shot right there. It's like, PolitiFact, PolitiFact, PolitiFact.
Yeah.
You're wrong. It's like, we're not getting juiced. The hype man back behind us is only telling us the truth. That is what's happened.
That is kind of the best way to describe PolitiFact is your hype man. Like you're the guy, you're the front guy, and then they're your hype man behind you telling you.
I don't know the truth or the facts, but they've told me that is the facts and the truth.
They've told me that I'm right no matter what I say.
Exactly. So again, that's the problem with modern discourse. It's like what I tell you. Everything is absolutely connected. Jon Stewart, the left, the Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, all the media companies together, including PolitiFact, including comedians, everything. They shaped what the political discourse in reality looks like today. Mm-hmm. And it's the reason we can't have civil discourse. Again, this is why I say Jon Stewart was the worst thing that ever happened to comedy or ever happened to news media.
Yeah. And Bill Maher as well.
And Bill Maher, because all they have to do is tell a joke or make a funny face, and the right is silly and dumb.
Yeah. I mean, I remember those back in the day when they first started bringing comedians into the fold, like back in the early 2000s, because they would bring on a Christian conservative person to debate on whatever topic it was, and then the left would bring in a comedian like Bill Maher, Amy Schumer, or somebody, and then they would make fun of them, and then, even if the conservative was right,
everyone would
laugh.
Write him off.
Hey, yeah, exactly. Like, oh, well, I'm laughing at this person, so therefore they must be wrong.
Again, it's the weaponization of comedy. If we're laughing at our enemies, we're not taking what they have to say seriously. Mm-hmm. And that's it. That's the truth. So everything is connected. From, again, to places, people and comedians like The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, to the mainstream media, to the fact-checking organizations within Facebook, PolitiFact. They shaped the political landscape and the reality that people my age and younger live in. So, again, if you wonder why we can't have civil discourse with people, that is why. And it's a shame. And again, whenever I have conversations with people my age or my peers, it's like, hey, you're nuts. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I promise you I'm viewing the world in a rational way from the media that I consume. This is why I watch Tim Pool, why I watch the Daily Wire, I don't watch Fox News very much.
Conservatives definitely get a more balanced diet of news versus liberals. Liberals only get it from their, left-wing completely dominated forces, whereas we have to go out and get news from left-wing sources because
they're already dominating the narrative. They're dominating the narrative. And thank God the political pendulum is swinging back, but that's not entirely true either. All that's happening is it's moving towards the middle, and we're going to get a more balanced dialogue. The dialogue has been on the left. The left sets the narrative, and the left sets the tone and tenor of the debate, and the right just responds to it. I'm hoping that the right might be able to start producing its own narratives and start being able to win the culture war. But the right, we really don't produce culture. So that's about all we've got for you today. I just wanted to, we just wanted to share all that information because I think it's that right there kind of solves a lot. Like, I mean, if we could just forward that whole video to the people we were debating, it might change their mind. But again, I don't think it would because I think they're so brainwashed.
It wouldn't, because anytime I've sent videos to the person who started the debate with you, he just goes, I want to hear your opinion on it. Well, that is my opinion on it. And he can sum it up better than I can. It's not my fault that I don't want to get into a 50-yard, hyping session with
again,
you on
even
Facebook.
I said that's why I even said I was like, this is not the place to have this conversation. It's like, well, we can meet in person. I'm like, why? Like the video can do a better job summarizing my thoughts on the matter than I can. So that's why we showed you that Tim Pool video. It's very important that we have a rational and balanced view of the world. And again, I might be on the right, but I feel like we do a good job of seeing the world as it is instead of how we want it to be. So I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong. I always try to entertain that solution. Maybe I am wrong. That's why I'm a servant of the Lord and not to myself. So with that being said, this is the Twins with Owasso Live. This was the Morning Loop. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you too can stay in the loop. But I think that's all we've got for you today. God bless you.
See you later, everybody.
Zuckerberg is a fraud, pretending to care about American democracy and the election. This guy spent $400 million last election cycle, and I don't care what he says, he is going to spend money somehow, some way in this election cycle. And let's put that aside. He owns one of the largest social media companies on earth in Facebook, Meta, and Instagram. I didn't hear the CEO and owner, Mark Zuckerberg, come out and say, I guarantee you my companies will not participate in censorship at the behest of the FBI or anyone else in the federal government, like we did in the last two elections, like we did with Hunter Biden's laptop, like we did with the 51 Intel letter. He could have said that, but he didn't because he wants it to happen. And as a sort of proactive, preemptive move to say, oh, I told you so, he came out to the media and said, oh, my bad, I'm sorry. But it doesn't matter to these guys because they're going to go past November 5th. And if they get their way and Harris is awarded the victory, they're just going to be like, nothing to see here. And if Donald Trump wins, they'll come back and say, see, our companies tried to comply. But it's BS. And Zuckerberg is the biggest fraud in big business.